Hey guys, this is Merlini bringing you the Dota 2 6.83 patch analysis dubbed Shifting Snows. And this is the nice piece of artwork that Valve has graced us with, www.dota2.com/shifting snows, if you want to follow the patch notes along yourself and check out the specific numbers and details for every one of these changes. So cool little fireplace and starry stuff. And credits to Dota2.com for that piece of art. So the general patch theme, as with 6.83, 6.82, 6.80, all the major big patches, is heavily focused around competitive play. So if you're getting owned by Slark or Meepo or whatever in your pubs, IceFrog most likely doesn't give any hoots, and he will be looking at top tier tournaments and high-end teams compete what they like to pick, what works out for them, what gets banned out in every game, and what leads to a few minor nerfs for the top tier heroes, very many minor buffs for the lower tier heroes. So the top tier heroes get knocked down just a notch to here, and the bottom of the bunch get knocked up to here, and hoping to close that gap in between viable and not viable. And overall, it's a very slight power creep since there are a lot more buffs than nerfs, but it's very slight, and the older heroes that don't get touched as often usually will get touched now and then to keep them up to pace. Anyways, the goal is to increase the competitive hero pool and hero viability so that hopefully every single hero is viable and you won't see heroes just like never get picked and they're just like, ew, that, and they'll just like laugh at you if you even consider picking that hero. So overall, I think it's a pretty nice variety that we've seen in 6.82c. So I'm glad that the changes are working, and of course those are what I deem the patch themes to be and what I think the goals are for each of the patches, not explicitly stated by IceFrog or anyone else. So important gameplay changes: non-hero and non-item changes at 000. When that horn is finished shooting, 2 bounty runes will spawn instead of 1 regular rune and 1 bounty rune. They are doubled in potency, so 100 gold and XP instead of 50. You should definitely be aware of this change because it may change what you do at that 0-minute spawn. You might not even block mid anymore. I think that people will actually go to the runes instead of blocking mid and the side lanes just because of how ridiculous 100 gold and XP is. 100 gold is almost a set of obs wards, and 100 XP is halfway to level 2 just by picking up a rune. So that is pretty darn important, and we may see even more of a shift to early supports that can bully runes like Ogre, as if he needed any more incentive to be picked, but you get the point. All illusions deal 25% less damage to structures. Huge nerf to Terrorblade, minor nerf to Naga, Anti-Mage, and the other illusion heroes. Not so much of a nerf to Phantom Lancer because he doesn't really do that much damage to structures with his illusions, but you should be aware of this change. Manta split pushing with the no risk minor reward of just sending your illusions to suicide towers. Thing of the past. Well, kind of a thing of the past with 75% damage done. Melee and ranged barracks are now treated as mini towers in terms of bounty: 100, 150 for last hitting it, and 100 team gold around 100, 125 for melee, 75 for range, balances out to 100. So that's kind of cool. It should be like, already they're pretty important objectives taking racks, but now it's kind of cool that the whole team gets rewarded for taking them out. The Ancient Granite Golem now has a 15% bonus health aura. To compensate for that, his health has been reduced from 2,000 to 1,700, which may seem, it's like, oh, 15% decrease, doesn't this aura bump it up to 2,000? No, not the case. 15% is 255. So it will be buffed to 1955 instead of 2000, so he has 45 less health, but he will buff his little golem buddies to 15% more health. But this does change ancient stacking, so if you have big old ancient stacks, like we see when teams play Tidehunter very often, it takes you 15% longer to clear it, which is a pretty significant deal. 15% more chance to get jacked, and if you just take ancients out one by one stack by one stack, you'll see pretty much zero loss in efficiency. But now it takes a little bit longer, less important for teams to focus on that. So minor gameplay updates aside from those. Oh, also, sorry, forgot about the Ancient Granite Golem. Also, at first glance, you'll probably think of it as a Chen buff, which it is, of course. Scepter Chen can dominate ancient creeps, so 15% bonus health aura to whole team is pretty darn huge. Minor gameplay updates: maximum attack speed increase from plus 400% to 500%. This realistically only affects Wind Ranger with Focus Fire and Ursa with Overpower. Ward location to the right of Roshan is now pathable. Couriers rejoice. It is very rare to have a point in the map where you can place a ward but not path to. And now you can blink up there to kill the ward instead of placing a ward yourself. So that's pretty cool. Private lobby games now use Dash Captain's mode creep spawn timer while in AP. So if you have pesky remakes due to server issues or whatever those pro teams like to remake for, should be a little bit faster now because you don't have to go through another draft. Also, it's, I guess, maybe somewhat important for Dota and other statistical sites. Techies and Bloodseeker now in Captain's mode. Techies, to be honest, won't affect it at all just because he's pretty weak. And he was in Dota 1 and very, 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 very few teams ever picked him. Bloodseeker is a different story. He has this like pretty cool buff in his first spell. His second spell is somewhat useful, especially if you can combo it with like a Yule's or like a Naga Sleep or something like that, or like RP or something. And Rupture is kind of cool with pure damage, but it's difficult to predict how much of an impact that he'll see. And some players tout him very highly as a support. Some players like him as a core. We shall see, but I expect him to be seen at least a little bit. So the top tier competitive heroes, we're moving on to the hero part of the patch. 1 star, slight numbers tweak. 5 stars, hero's portrait will be unrecognizable after getting beat so badly with a nerf stick. So top tier competitive heroes, almost all of them have been nerfed. Brewmaster, 4 stars, -2 armor, thunderclap, double nerf, reduced duration, increased cooldown. So armor nerfs on strength heroes are much more significant than either of the other two because your effective HP that you lose from one armor is much more significant since they have a higher HP pool. So you think a 1 armor buff on like Necrolite or someone is cool, Brewmaster getting -2 is pretty big. Tidehunter, 3 stars. Ancients nerfed with the 15% aura. You also have the refresher nerf. You also have -5 move speed, and you have less ravage damage. So that, all in all, 3 stars. Death Prophet, slight strength nerf on top of Yule's nerf. So kind of minor nerf there. She wasn't super popular, but popular enough. Ogre, 3 stars. Fire Blast, damage decreased by 20, I believe, at max level, but you had to multiply that by 8 because we all know the GG Ogres with their GG 4x double multicast on people. Also, Fire Blast range decrease, so he's like more of a melee hero, which he actually should be since he is a melee hero with intelligence capable burst damage. Jakiro, Liquid Fire nerfed from 30 to 24 damage per tick, so 6 damage a tick times 5 seconds times like hero plus tower plus multiple creeps. Fairly significant, only 2 stars though. Faceless Void, 4 stars. What happened to him? Well, Time Walk no longer slows attack speed. On top of that, Chronosphere cooldown got increased at levels 2 and 3. And ward unit types like Death Ward can't attack in Chronospheres. And on top of that, Refresher nerf. So he got a wide variety of nerfs and maybe a little bit more difficult for heroes, for him to man fight heroes now that he doesn't slow their attack speed. Of course, he still has Bash, and he's really good at man fighting heroes generally. So we'll see how much of an impact that has. Broodmother, top tier, maybe not. Some teams think he is, some teams think he isn't, but she was picked enough for me to put her in this category. 1 star nerf, minor vision nerf on broodlings makes it a little bit more difficult to scout. 1 star. Terrorblade, 2 stars. Reflection actually got buffed, cast point got decreased, Sunder got nerfed a tiny bit, and of course the -25% illusion, which is the most significant part of Terrorblade. Then we move on to some of the less popular heroes. Skywrath, 1 star. Agility nerf, who cares? He doesn't have any armor really to lose anyways. Elder Titan, I'm surprised that he didn't get touched as much. It's a little bit of a damage nerf for his spirit, and you can't do that trick where you stomp while the spirit is moving anymore, which should have been in the game honestly for as long as it was. Slark, pounce damage nerfed, 2 stars. Hurts his burst a lot. He needs to be able to kill people as soon as possible. So yeah, not too significant. Vengeful Spirit, Howl of Terror, cooldown nerf from 15 to 20 seconds. So this is still 100% uptime theoretically because the duration is 20 seconds. It was cooldown 15 before, so you can actually keep like 2 targets that are completely away from each other. Howl Turret at the same time. But you can't use it to scout as frequently as you would like, and teams often maxed her second skill on that hero just because of how potent it was. So you may see some of the skill builds change a little bit, but 2-star nerf for her. And heroes that were top tier but did not get touched at all: Razor, Lycan, Batrider, Viper, AA, and Witch Doctor all got untouched. I think most of those warranted that they didn't get touched, although Lycan and Viper, I would not have been surprised to see them tweaked a little bit in that nerf direction. So moving on from the notable top tier heroes, we go to the notable hero buffs, which is kind of like that mid tier hero, like your 20 percentile to like 70th percentile heroes, not even 70th, 20 to 50 percentile heroes. Alchemist, Greevil's Greed improved significantly. It scales better now. The value point is better. It was very difficult to get the full value out of Greevil's Greed, and you'd often just see carries sometimes just skip it until way later just because his other skills are so much better. So now you should actually get Greevil's Greed, at least one point, I would say earlier. Bounty Hunter, lower track CD, and more track gold. So now you kind of have to get a bottle on them, I'd say, to spam track over and over. 4 seconds from 10 seconds at level 6 is pretty darn huge, and you get more track gold, only for yourself though, not for your teammates. Chaos Knight, he was really, really bad. Even with Wisp, sometimes a Wisp couldn't save him from being terrible. So the hero kind of needed a rework because he was only viable when partnered with a Wisp. Improved Reality Rift damage and mana cost. Pretty necessary considering how expensive Chaos Bolt is to cast and how low the Reality Rift cooldown is. And on top of that, increased Phantasm duration. So he is probably out of the bottom 5, moving down to maybe like bottom 30 heroes. He's up there. Chen can teleport control creeps itself, more max units. So you can control 4 units now at max Holy Persuasion, and you have higher mobility on your creeps. That's cool. Darkseer, vacuum cooldown not increased. And we've seen so many patches where Darkseer's vacuum increased by 3 seconds, increased by 3 seconds, increased by 2 seconds. But he actually got a buff. Base armor increased by 1 and the pull duration a little bit longer. So that is very cool. He needed a tiny bit of love maybe. Disruptor, all skills buffed except for Lightning Strike. I already thought he was a tier 1.5 support, maybe push to tier 1 now. Some teams already thought he was. Enchantress, since Chen got a buff, Enchantress probably needed one too. 20 move speed buff on old Bambi. Lena, typical Lena treatment, buffs, minor buffs everywhere, you name it, she got it, aside from attack range. Night Stalker Darkness improved significantly. So firstly, nighttime cast by darkness no longer changes the day-night timer. So before, if it was, or sorry, it no longer pauses the timer. So before it was like 4 minutes of daytime no matter what you did. Sometimes you could like pause it a little bit with darkness, but now darkness will overlap daytime. So no longer will you have a lot of downtime on him. On top of that, the ward vision as well as tower vision, I believe, have been decreased during nighttime to 675, which is very significant when you consider what observer wards can already see at nighttime. Heroes actually got like a slight vision buff if you have normal nighttime vision from 600 to 675. But he's a lot more potent now, and it's very difficult to take a good fight because you can't see anything. Queen of Pain, this hero is awesome now. Blink level 1 is amazing. You no longer have the limited range. It's kind of like anti-mage blink, except super anti-mage blink, because it's like 1300 range now, which is more than blink dagger. Its cooldown increased slightly at the early levels, but level 4 still the same at 6 second CD, as well as an amazing 1300 range. Sonic Wave improved significantly too. Queen of Pain, Sonic Wave now does pure damage and affects spell immune. Keep in mind this is without Scepter. Affects spell immune without Scepter on a heavy spellcaster. That is amazing. Sonic Wave damage reduced a little bit, but it's not 25% damage. It's a little bit less. So all in all, actually, it got buffed in damage too. So that is really, really good for Queen of Pain. Sniper Shrapnel improved slightly. People don't really skill it, although I think it's one of the most underrated skills in the game. Undying, all skills buffed except for Decay. Wind Ranger Power Shot buffed. Before there was this thing where if you channel it all the way, if you channel it 0.7 seconds or 1 second, it would still give the same amount of damage. Now there is a difference, and overall the channeling time is decreased. Honorable mentions: CM, Gyro, Juggernaut, Kunkka, Lesh, Lifestealer, Lion, Riki, Slaughter, and Tusk. You can look in the patch notes for each of these specific changes, but I thought they were just honorable mentions. Maybe they'll bump up their picks a couple of times every 100 games, but nothing to write home about. And then we have the item changes. Animal Courier now costs 120 gold for that cute little donkey instead of 150. Bottle Crow nerfed. No longer is it just for empty bottles, it's non-full bottles. So 1 charge, 2 charge, 0 charges. Your crow will be moving at a very slow pace. Diffusal Blade is no longer an unique attack modifier. So you can stack orbs on you can stack orbs with Diffusal Blade, which is pretty cool. Usually I guess only melee heroes get it, just because that's just how it works. You don't get it on ranged illusions, so you'll see the Diffusal Manta combo very often on melee heroes. Yule's recipe increased by 150 to 650 ever since it stopped Blink Dagger. It has been picked up in, I think, every competitive game I've seen, or almost every. And Magic Wand max charge is now 17 instead of 15. Didn't seem like that big of a buff, but since Magic Wand is gotten so often, I thought it would be important to include it here. Medallion of Courage tweaked slightly. You can now cast it on allies to make them more courageous and tank more. It costs more now. I think the recipe is 325 instead of 200, and it gives 1 more armor, but more utility. Hopefully it'll be seen for something else besides doing Roshan. Pipe of Insight buffed. Did that item really need a buff? Well, I remember when I was casting, I would always yell at teams because they didn't get the item. It is an amazing item. Didn't think it needed a buff, but teams need more incentive to get it, I suppose. And a Refresher Orb increased CD by 10, so 195 instead of 185. Might not be enough to knock like Refresher Void and Refresher Tidehunter out of the equation, but still a step in the right direction. Anyways, that sums up my important notes for the Shifting Snows update. If you like my videos, you can subscribe to my YouTube channel at youtube.com/MerliniDota. You can also watch my stream at twitch.tv/MerliniDota. Thank you guys so much for watching, and enjoy the patch.